Previously, we talked about ancient Greece, and we said that some of the literature of ancient Greece was very famous. We said that the works of Homer are seen as the first great works of Western literature. These works are actually very long poems, and they're called the Iliad and the Odyssey. Today we're going to talk about the story behind these poems, what the poems are about. What they talk about is a great war between Greece and another place called Troy. The people who lived in Troy were called Trojans. People believe that Troy was a city in the modern country of Turkey, just east of Greece. The war between the Greeks and the Trojans is said to have happened in the 12th or 13th century BC, so a long time ago, and a long time before these poems were written too. This war was very famous in the ancient world, and much of Greek and Roman literature talks about it. The war started because of a person called Paris. He was the son of the king of Troy, the prince of Troy. Paris fell in love with a woman called Helen. The problem was that Helen was the wife of one of the Greek kings. Paris and Helen ran away from this Greek king and went back to live in Troy. The Greek king was of course extremely angry and wanted to take revenge on Paris and on Troy. So the king asked his brother, who was king of a different part of Greece, to help him. His brother agreed, and they raised a huge army to attack Troy. This army was so large that they needed 1,000 ships to carry it to Troy. Helen is famously called the woman with the face that launched 1,000 ships. They arrived at Troy and started a siege that lasted 10 years. In the poem, there are many great fighters, many great warriors. There are also all the gods who helped the Greeks and Trojans in the battles. The most famous warrior in Troy is Hector. He was also a prince of Troy and the brother of Paris. The most famous warrior in the Greek army is Achilles. Achilles is part human, part god. His father was a man, but his mother was a goddess. During this 10-year siege, there were many different battles, and this is what the Iliad talks about. At one point, the king of the Greeks insulted Achilles by taking a girl from him. Achilles refused to fight for the Greek king, and the Trojans started to win the war. But then, one of Achilles' friends was killed by Hector, the prince of Troy. Achilles was so angry that he decided to take revenge on Hector. Achilles put on his armor that had been made by the gods, and went looking for Hector. He found him and defeated him. Achilles then took Hector's body and tied it to his chariot. He rode around, pulling the body behind him. Hector, the prince of Troy, had been killed. The king of Troy then came to see his enemy Achilles, to ask for the body of his son back. Achilles agreed, and the two armies stopped fighting to allow the funeral of Hector to take place. The next part of this story is how the war finally ends. After 10 years of fighting, and after the deaths of many famous warriors, the Greeks thought of an idea. Instead of beating the Trojans in battle, they would trick them, they would fool them. The Greeks built a large wooden horse and left it outside the city of Troy. They then went back to their ships and sailed away. The Trojans thought the Greeks had finally given up, they had finally decided to go home. They thought the large wooden horse was a gift to the gods from the Greeks, and they took it inside the city. But it was a trick. Inside the horse, many Greek warriors were hiding. At night, they quietly climbed out of the horse and opened the door to the city. The Greek ships had not sailed back to Greece. They'd just been hiding too. When the door to Troy was opened, they sailed back, and the Greek army simply walked into the city. The Greeks then completely destroyed Troy, killing all the people and burning all the buildings. The war ended with a victory for the Greeks, and the story of the war was told in Greek and Roman literature for many hundreds of years.